Welcome. Today I want to talk to you about how to prepare your printing plate. Yesterday we went to the library and we printed out tons of resources. And most of you are at the stage now where you're trying to come up with what we call a composition. How are you going to arrange all these really good ideas into a rectangle? And if you need to, you can still work in your sketchbook for a little bit to get the ideas right. Many of you yesterday got a piece of rectangular 6-inch by 9-inch paper. You can orient it either way, landscape or portrait. Either one is fine. This is going to be your final paper that you are going to draw your final printmaking design onto. If you don't have it, check the materials table and you can get another piece. When you are printmaking and coming up with your design, remember some of these really handy tips. No letters or numbers. So make sure when you're doing your design, no letters or numbers. Fill the whole space. You don't want to leave big empty places. In fact, some printmakers say 50-50. 50% of this whole rectangle should be filled with designs. You want larger, thick lines. You can even do it with the Sharpie marker if you'd like. Avoid tiny, small details. Now, printmaking, when we work on the plate, is going to eventually be a really cool stamp-like technique, but not yet. Just keep in mind that you're only going to have one color. This isn't a multicolor project. It just uses one color plus the paper. Use your resources. That's really important. Use your resources that you printed out from the library. And remember, when you're thinking about your theme, don't just necessarily do something because you like it. Try to include meaning in your design. Maybe it's very personal, but make sure it's there. So here's my design that I drew out on my paper. So you can see I used really thick lines. I don't actually have any small details except for the background has some lines. And I filled up all the spaces. I went off the edge of the page. I included lots of really interesting but bigger details. The lines, the bubbles. They're actually very simple. Circles, lines, but they fill it up and give it an interesting composition. Remember, there's a lot of things that you can do. We looked at many different prints. We looked at reflections. Fill up the whole space. You can also do something very simple, but thick lines, borders. Keep that in mind when you're designing on your paper. Use the whole rectangle, Don't leave the sky blank. Include as many lines, shapes as you can. Same thing. If you have empty space, don't leave it empty. Fill it. Add curving lines to make the water. Add bubbles, add circles. Whatever your design is, fill that design. Include a border. Make it really big. 50% of your print needs to have a design in it. Thick and thin lines. So this rooster, instead of just making the outline of a rooster, this artist filled it in. It's almost like you're coloring in your design, but you're adding lots of shapes and designs within the design. This is a really cool border. Simple, but very cool. Fill up the entire space. When you're doing this, your entire space needs to be filled up. Fill up the whole space. This artist just put circles around the owls. Circles and designs, but it helped fill up the whole space. Fill up your whole entire space. It will make your design much cooler. So here's my design. Once you actually get your whole design onto your paper, then you can begin. How do we begin? How do we make a printing plate? That's what I'm going to show you next. Most of you will not be ready for this step today. Most of you will spend the entire art class working on your design. That's okay. If for some reason you are ready to move on, I will show you the next steps. The next step will involve foam. This looks like a piece of paper, but it's much thicker. When you get your foam from the materials table, make sure you're getting thicker foam. I buy this in sheets, but I've also been known to clean out styrofoam containers from the grocery store and reuse them and cut out the bottoms or my takeout containers from restaurants. Before you do anything with the foam, you need to write your name on the back with Sharpie marker. Gently. Gently. Gently write it on the back with Sharpie. Then you're going to take a piece of masking tape and you're going to tape your picture to the front of the styrofoam. Notice I flipped it over.